times. But when you used to have the herring boats in from one side to the other, one massive, from that far pier there to this pier, you could literally walk across the decks of the boats from one pier to the other. That was the herring boats at about September time when they used to come, which was a marvellous sight. But look at it now, what have we got? Half a dozen trawlers in, that's your lot, there's no more. I mean, you'd have maybe 30 or 40 big trawlers all coming into here in the olden days. I'd like to see it as it was in the olden days. I mean, I spent the best part of my life, 50 years, coming out of that end of that little jetty down there in my boat. That's where I used to have my boat moored. And I wish I had as many pounds as times I've come under this bridge. But I'd be a rich man, I'll tell you. But I've had some happy days, very happy days in here. There's no doubt about it. It's all got that modern now. It isn't like it used to be. Even where we actually stood, this lighthouse here, when it was the old, real old type, the real old bridge there. This is a modern new bridge that's been built this last few years. So it's a bit sad, really. I mean, people come from all over the world to see old, quaint old fishing villages and fishing ports. But what are they going to see when they come to Scarborough? Just modernised harbour, not the old one like it used to be. That's why we're fortunate in having photographs and different things like what we're doing now, this doing this DVD so that people in 50 years' time can look back and say, oh, well, that's what it was like. But I mean, I can remember what it was like 50 years ago back then, which makes a huge bit of difference, a lot of difference. But we've had some nice days. I can remember one particular time, it was in the fishing festival, when we were away fishing, and this particular year, I'm going back now maybe 20 years ago, when there was a lot of fish about, and we had that much fish in the weighing in, we had to weigh on that crane just there. We couldn't carry the fish down to the weighing in place on the Marine Drive, we had that much. And I think I have a photograph somewhere of a heap of fish standing about 3 foot high. There was 300 or 400 pounds of fish which we'd caught that day. But I'm afraid those days have gone now, so I don't know. Looking out over the far side of that pier there, over the far pier top, I've spent some happy days on there. By lad, I have. That's fishing off the pier itself, angling. Some happy days on there. I've spent nearly all my life on there, actually. When you look at Corrigans, now you'll remember yourself, John, the old Corrigans, when we used to go underneath and wait for the money dropping through from the people up above. They used to have all these pennies and wait, it used to fall through, and there was us underneath waiting to catch it until they got wise to it and stopped it. So there we are. And then of course this building here that we stood at the back of, this is Scarborough Yacht Club. When I once complained about one of their members that nearly mowed me down out at sea. And all I did, I had to complain about him. Yeah, this was on Filey Brig End at that particular time. And this yacht, it belonged to, I can't remember his name, he was a doctor at the hospital, plenty of money. And he was just a danger to everybody. He just was cutting straight across us. So when we came in, I came to the club here where we stood outside, and I was invited in to see the Commodore, and I complained to him and about his attitude and everything, and he got reprimanded, this yacht club man. And there was another instance on the end of the far pier. The yachts in those days used to come extremely close to the pier end. I think nowadays they've got a limit where they've got to keep so many yards away from the pier. But at this particular time we were fishing on the pier, and I thought, I'll teach him a bloody lesson. So I put on a great 10-ounce sinker on me on the end of my rod, and as he come past the pier end, I had a real good cast with it, and the sinker went straight through his sails, and he wasn't very pleased, he wasn't very happy. I thought, wow, well, you come up here and complain, mate, and you'll follow that sinker. So them were happy days, them. But we are like, I mean, I've been a member of the boat clubs now for 40, maybe getting on 50 years. And we always got on well with the yachting fraternity. Some were a bit obstreperous like, and thought they owned the harbour, but taking it all in all, we got on very well with them. And we had some nice friends, really. I remember I passed my radio test and my nautical examinations in this yacht club. We were invited to come one night because some of the yachting club members were taking in the same examination. So that was another time when I got through those doors, just to do my tests and my examinations, which we passed, of course, so that was nice. So I've got a few connections with this building, but as you can see, it's all altered that much now. All the yachts are moored in unison down here, the pontoons and everything, and that's the similar thing that you can see there that is going to take place in that other harbour. So I don't know, I'm sure I might live a few more years yet to see it, you don't know. Yes, I can remember going back over the years, the boats, different boat anglers we used to have. The oldest character and the most, well, he was a character, there's no doubt, was Arthur Blogg. He had the boat, you can just see his boat just down there, called the Arcadian. It's still on the go, that boat, and Arthur died about 3 years ago, I think. There was Arthur Blogg, there was Eric Appleby, he had a boat just down here. There was Ronnie Bays, John Cunnell, Dickie Larn, all old anglers, old Scarborough lads that had boats. And then on this side of the jetty where I had mine, a chap had a boat inside of mine called Betty Blue. And I saw this chap one day and I said to him, "Can you remember the day when I kicked the side of your boat in?" He says, "I bloody well can," he said. Well, I said, "It wanted kicking in, it was rotten." And we went down one day, "I will get rid of this sodding boat," and I give it a kick, and the side of it went in and it sank. He wasn't very happy. There we are. And then there was quite a lot of old characters knocking about. I mean, when you look at the other harbour, I could mention old characters there like Blondie Wood, Jitter, Bill Shader, coxswain of the lifeboat. Tommy Rowley, he was a second coxswain. About Cutsey Leader, he's still around, his Cutsey. And there's quite a lot of old characters there, but alas, a lot of them's gone, quite a lot. Then there was my old pal, my very big friend, Johnny Norm, you'll remember him, had the Florite, SH3, the Florite, who I used to go to sea with. There was John, there was his brother, and then there was old Roll Crawford. There was Johnny Nom, his brother Bill, and Roll Crawford. And there was Banger Parks that used to go with them now and again. There was 4 of them in the crew, and they were well known for fighting, especially on the boats. They'd go to sea and have a scrap and fall out and come back in again. And they were 8 old characters. Of course, Johnny Normandale, he lived up St Mary's Street, and his wife, she was Margaret. She's a very nice lady, very nice, but strictly religious, extremely religious, and house proud. She was that house proud. She wouldn't have carpets down. She always had newspapers. You couldn't walk through the front door till you took your shoes off. And she wouldn't have television. She didn't believe in television. And they had the old-fashioned gramophone with the big horn stuck up in the sitting room. Oh, I'll never forget that gramophone. And then she used to wash the windows every day, every morning. About 10 o'clock she'd be outside on a chair washing her windows. And then when she'd washed them, she polished them. Because one of my pals, we were walking past one day, and there was Margaret polishing the windows, and I thought she was going to bray him with a sweeping brush, just like Nora Batty, because she says, my pal says, "Damn, you'll wash them bloody windows away one day." He said, "They must be that thin now, must that glass, there can't be much left where you cleaned them." And she got off that chair, and she was going to bray him with a sweeping brush. Boy, did we shoot up that street, I'll tell you. But she wouldn't let John, poor old John, he was married to her, and she wouldn't let John go out to the pub for a drink on a night until I'd called for him, because she didn't trust him. Then there was all the seafront pubs, I don't know, the Lancaster at the far end, the Golden Ball, the Newcastle Packet, the Lord Nelson, the Pier, which is long gone, the Dolphin round the corner, and the Britannia. And Fridays, Saturday nights, we used to set off about maybe 7 o'clock, go to the Lancaster at the far end there. Then we'd come from the Lancaster, but for some reason or other we always missed the Golden Ball, because none of the fishermen used to go in there for some reason or other. And then we used to finish up in the Newcastle Packet, Jack Curtis on the organ in the corner, had a bit of a sing-song. Then we'd go on to the Pier, and then into the Lord Nelson. And by that time we'd have picked up somebody that was going to have a party. There was always a party going on somewhere down here. And we'd get involved in a bit of a bottle party till maybe 5 o'clock in the morning, and that was our Fridays and Saturday nights, unfortunately. But them were extremely nice days, and for all we used to do all these activities, we never got into trouble. I mean, today you get youths and going out today, all they want to do is kick people's heads in and break property and damage things. In those days we used to have quite a lot to drink and stagger about a bit, but we never got into trouble, never had any bother at all. But only a thick head following morning. And I've even seen, me and you may recall, John, come out of the pub maybe about 12 o'clock at night, come home, get me fishing gear and come down, get on the boat, still half kettled, and go off to sea for the rest of the day, many a time. But that was life in them days, and we used to enjoy it. So looking around, I think we're leaving a reasonable place, Scarborough, for future generations. It might not be the same as what it is now. It certainly isn't the same as it was 50, 60 years ago. That's a fact. So there we are. I mean, I can remember when I was about 10 years old, a gang of us, we come out of school and we thought we'd do a silly thing. We'd walk from one side of that harbour to the other. Of course, we got halfway across, we didn't think about it being thick mud, and one of the lads sank up to his neck in mud and there was only his head stuck out at mud. That was really hilarious, that was. Did we get a belting for that? By land. I never walked it across it again, I'll tell you. But you'll recall when I used to dig thirsts in that harbour, big ragworms, maybe 3 foot long, like great snakes they were. And I would think there'll still be some there, maybe some still down there. So then we were stopped from digging because they thought somebody had fallen down the holes. I've had 3 boats in the years gone by. My last one, the Pilot Me 2, which we built ourselves, was launched on the slipway over there, which I think somewhere we have photographs and pictures of it. That was launched over there, and we had a bit of a launching party, which was very nice. I remember I felt as proud as a peacock steaming across here in my new boat. That was a very happy day, that was. And then of course I had the old Pilot Me. That boat was literally held together with putty and bits of lead and nails. It's a wooden boat, a little wooden cobble we got, and I remember I got it off George Eves, big George Eves. It was his boat. And I think he knew what it was like when he sold it to me. And then of course my first boat that I ever had was the old Cathay, which was a Whitby cobble which came from Whitby. And that boat disappeared. I don't know, it was a very big mystery that. It went to Whitby to be sold. So I was going to buy a new boat, and like the old Cathay went to Whitby shipyards to be sold. They were going to sell it for me. But little did I know, a fortnight after it went to Whitby shipyards went bust, into liquidation. We dashed up there the same day to try and find my boat, and it was not in Whitby at all. We toured Whitby all up the Esk, and it had disappeared into thin air. I think somebody had got it out at the road a bit sharpish. Then we had, I never, rough seas never used to bother us lads, and we used to have some nice times. I think I've only had the lifeboat out to me once, I think, and that was with, I just forget where we were. We weren't very far away, and then I used to break down quite a few times, but somehow or other we always used to get back. There's 1 or 2 lads that have sort of, what can we say, it isn't an apprenticeship, but I've given them a lot of knowledge that I used to get up. And I used to say to them, now, how would you get back if you were 6 miles out to sea in a thick fog? And I used to say to them, well, first of all, a thick fog is associated with either easterly or southeasterly winds. It's a wind direction off the sea that makes the fog. You never get the fog with a westerly wind. And if you're 6 miles out to sea in a, say there's a southeasterly, bit of southeasterly, you will get the fog at some time or other. But if the fog comes down and envelops you, which it has done at times, all you have to do is, if you're 6 miles out to sea, the sun, which 9 times out of 10 you can you can get a rough idea where the sun is, trying to get through the fog. If you keep the sun on your port bow, which is of course on your left, you know that you're going due west. Therefore, if you keep the sun on your port bow and keep going, you're going towards land. And also, if there's a southeasterly swell, the swell is running in towards the land. So if you're running with the swell, you're running back towards land. Then you've got to have somebody in the bows to keep their eyes open, because sometimes you'll hear the fog on, sometimes you won't. But I've got back in no problems sometimes. Sometimes you've come in and found yourself maybe across by the spar, but we always got back in. It was just a case of, in a fog you don't have to panic. You haven't got to panic whatsoever. Just one skipper only, and that is it. That is a law in boat. One skipper. If you all start saying you want to go this way, you want to go that way, you'll finish up in Timbuktu, believe you me. So you have to stand firm, say we are going that way, and that is it. And I always used to manage, and I mean I got all my shall I say, my maritime skills come from Johnny Nom, who had the Fleurite. He used to teach me an awful lot, did John. I mean, on the Fleurite, he was very well known. He hadn't a radio. All he had was the old-fashioned card compass. These are the ones that have been out since early morning. They're the potting boats, crab pots, and working pots and crabs and lobsters. So that one's just on its way in. So there we are. I see there'll be, what are we now, 22? Right, 20 to 12, just right. They know when the pubs are opening. They all seem to get in. It's I don't know what it is. It must be some attraction or other that a fisherman always seems to be heading in when it gets to about 12 o'clock, because the pubs are open and that's where they're led for. I could take you now where they all are, and they'll all be there, and they'll go and have the drink, then they wander up home for the dinners. Yeah, I can remember quite a few big storms here, which we've had. When you look at it now, all nice and peaceful, and then you think of some of the big storms when the waves used to come over that far pier, and you used to get wet through, stood here at the yachting club. The waves would be right across here, absolutely, maybe come 70, 80 feet high across the far pier, and the spray come right across this pier. But you don't seem to get many of those nowadays for some reason or other. And then I've seen the lifeboats go out in some terrible weather, really, really bad weather. But there we are. I used to hold no fear for me going out, really. I used to go out in some horrendous seas, and people used to say, well, he's balmy, that bloke, that Edmonds, he's crackers, cowboy they called me in them days. And they all christened me cowboy because I had bent legs. And they all just thought I used to ride a horse. Chance would have been a fine thing. We had some right times in the rough weather sometimes, I suppose. I always remember one instant when we were hauling lines off the Castle Foot in bad weather, and the lifeboat rockets went. The lifeboat was out, and unfortunate, it was when I forget the name of the boat, it sank with 3 chaps on board over near the South Bay Pool. I think one was drowned, and I'll never forget that day. Everybody thought it was us that had gone, but it wasn't. So that sort of learnt me a little bit of a lesson then. I was very careful after that, because you could see how you could get into trouble. So, and then course we always used to carry flares and rockets. I often wondered what happened to the flare I had. I'd love to set it off. There's one of the chaps that had a boat in here, Johnny Gate. He was a sea captain he used to be a captain of tankers, on the tankers, BP tankers. And he brought us all these flares once to share out among the boat angling lads for the boats. And I got this one in a big tin can. And I remember Johnny Gate saying to me, he says, "Ray," he says, "if you ever have to set this flare off," he says, "make sure that you're sinking, the boat's about going, you're dying and everything," because he says, when you set this flare off, he says, you'll have everything out between here and the Thames, because he said it's one of the flares off one of the big tankers and they'll know what it's off, so he says, you better make sure that you're in trouble. Well, I don't know where it ever went to, that, because I often thought, well, I'd love to set it off. I don't know what happened to it. But there's only once I had to set rockets off, and that was when I had my first boat, the old Cathay. And we went off. I'd only had it about 3 or 4 weeks, so I was a bit green really, and anything like that. And we went this particular night. I took all my mates, Ted Thompson and 1 or 2 of them. We went about a mile off the pier end and fishing away, and when it come to coming in at 9 o'clock time, the engine wouldn't start, would it? Oh, we tried and tried, no. So the brave Charlie here thought, right, we'll send a rocket up. Well, this bloody rocket went up and it illuminated half of Scarborough South Bay. Well, the lifeboat didn't come out because the sea was calm, and Bill Shader, the coxswain of the lifeboat, and Blondie Wood came for us in Blondie Wood's cobble. Did he give us a rollicking? He didn't half chatter. We all finished up at Newcastle Pocket getting drunk, because they come out for us, so I had to give them a bit of a treat, so we all adjourned to the pub. We got over it, and that's the only time I've really been in trouble with the lifeboat. But I always admire the lifeboat and the lifeboat lads, because sometimes when you see the weather they're going, it's horrendous. Mind you, they have these modern lifeboats now that they can just about go through anything. Well, I used to like working my pots. My favourite place was just off the end of here, really, in the Ramsdale Scar. I always used to manage a good lobster out of there. And back of the Marine Drive, I used to work my pots. About, I think the most I worked was about 25 to 30 in one go. Not like the professional fishermen that, I mean, they'll work 200 or 300 in a day, no problem. But it was nice, the potting. I remember I don't know whether I've related before about the time when I was potting and there was an eel in the pot. And when we had Big Sid with us, I think that's already been mentioned. But we used to get all sorts of things in the pots. It's amazing. I've had codlings in the pots. Get fish going, and it's amazing what you do get in them. And of course sometimes you can slip up and you leave your pots in overnight, and next morning there's a blooming great storm and you've lost the lot. They've gone. Just mysteriously disappear. But there we are. Then of course in the later years, I used to get some nets. I got trammel nets and I used to work nets and that. I used to love trammel netting, that was nice, I enjoyed that. I used to get, my favourite place was down the South Shore there. I used to get great big soles, really beautiful big soles and things like that. And I mean, it wasn't Sometimes you used to get the odd salmon in. I've had an odd salmon or two in my trammel nets. You didn't have to hide them, you just have to shove them down your trousers leg to come ashore with, because if you're caught with them like that, you get stuck in jail. But we used to do that. Same with the lobsters sometimes. If you got a lobster about 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch undersized, it was very tempting to bring them. But if you were caught with them, you weren't half in trouble. I had the fisheries inspector chap just once come aboard my boat to have a look, see what I was up to, have inspect my pots, inspect my nets, see if they were the right thing and that. But yeah, everything was all right. I wasn't doing anything that I shouldn't have been doing. I mean, I will admit, I have brought an undersized lobster once or twice, and I used to shove them down my trousers, wrap them up in a bit of cloth and stick them down your trousers, and you'd be walking with a limp like this when you were coming ashore, like, you know, I've got my leg climbing up, rail up off boat sort of thing. But little did they know you had a blooming lobster stuck down your trousers. Yeah, well, I can remember a little story. The Navy was here. The Apollo maybe was in the bay, and all the Navy lads was here anyway. And we were having a bit of a lark about on the boat. And this particular day I was on my boat now. I was dressed in a leopard skin leotard, having a bit of a laugh. And Arthur Blogg, who had the Arcadian, he used to have a gorilla suit, and he was dressed as a gorilla. And we were larking about down in the harbour, and I was on the deck in this leopard skin leotard with a bottle in my hand. And these Navy lads was walking down this pier, coming towards down here to get picked up to go to the boat. And they were whistling at me, going woo, woo. And they were going like this, oh, hello, ducky, you know. And I thought, heck, I better knock this off. So anyway, I came down onto Arthur Blogg's boat, and I'm stuck on Arthur Blogg's boat then, and Arthur says, well, why don't you do a weather dance? A dance for some nice weather. So here's me dancing about, and I'm doing all sorts of dancing in this leopard skin leotard. Well, these Navy lads thought it was hilarious, and I'll never forget that. And I thought they thought they'd got a right in here. So that was one of the funny times. But we used to lark about a bit and have a bit of fun, you know. I mean, I used to think nothing of going on the Marine Drive over there and climbing down on a rope looking for sinkers and all sorts. I found watches and all sorts of stuff down there. But used to go down there and have a little roam around. Of course, they've piled it all up with stones now, so that's all gone. That's something that nobody will ever see again. That, I'm afraid. But that's the thing, in maybe 50 years' time, people will say, oh, doesn't it look nice, all this, with all these rocks piled up here? And little do they know that them rocks weren't there. They were all man-made, those rocks, all brought from Norway and piled up there for the weather. Mind you, if they hadn't have done it, the Marine Drive would have crumbled away. It was just disintegrating completely. So it was a good job, well done, I think. We didn't like the idea of it when it first started, all this rebuilding the Marine Drive and that, but I suppose looking at it in one sense, you've got to think of the future, and it will still be there in 50 years' time, and I know I shan't be. If I am, I shall be a funny old beggar by then. So, but there we are. So, I hope that everything's still here in years to come, and when Craig or any of them get these things and look back on these years, you know, look around and say, well, yeah. But when you see Scarborough as it is now, and then as I can see it in my young days, 60 years ago, it's unbelievable what changes there's been when you look around. So there we are. Now look at that now, that over there with all the sun just catching them buildings. That's what makes it nice. It really looks nice when it's like that. So there we are.